Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Wonderkamer. My name is Jen Rempel. I am here with
David Powell
and Tracy Anderson Powell.
And we are here to share something fascinating that we have an interest in. And in this episode, I'm going to be doing part 2 of my psychogeographical tour of Kurt Cobain's Washington state, the Kurt Cobain Tragical History Tour. So where we left off last episode was basically making fun of Aberdeen and calling it a shithole. So I do feel kind of bad about that. You know, people live in Aberdeen, Washington, and I'm sure there are
We're
nice
sorry
things,
for your loss about
Yes.
living in Aberdeen, also Cobain, but mostly Aberdeen.
That's right. I do want to make a quick correction. I said Kurt Cobain was born on February 21st. He was born on February 20th. So, fine. Made a mistake of a day. Typo.
We want all of our listeners to understand that we take our corrections seriously. And so if any of you are inveterate pedants, come at us. We will defeat you.
Especially if you're inveterate.
Yeah.
Tracy?
Or you can send us an email at contact@thewonderkamer.ca.
You can. But one thing I will remind you of is we are 3 dilettantes, so we're doing our best. I know my brain is full of holes and lesions, and I've had COVID a couple times, so I'm struggling on a daily basis, as I'm sure we all are. But anyway, brain fart, February 20th. Fine. Okay, so he's leaving Aberdeen. I wanted to show you guys a really bizarre website I found. This is really off topic, but it kind of blew my mind. So last summer, I'm going to send you a link in the...
I'm so excited.
Last summer, I was reading a book about somebody else, and I discovered this website called famouskin.com, and it's pretty wild. Everybody in America is related. All the famous people are related. So this is a list of famous relatives of Kurt Cobain. These are back to, as you can see, the 1630s.
Wow.
He's
This
from
is
a
the most
Mayflower
American.
family.
Oh my
Yes.
God.
But guess who he's cousins with? If you go down, you can see some very interesting relations. I'm going to send you this one. Some kind of surprised me. You open the link?
I mean, 6 cousin removed 6 times from FDR basically means not related. So Kurt Cobain could have ethically had sex with FDR and Lavinia Warren, the dwarf circus performer.
Exactly. But very famous. The podcast Evil Men, they did a Dahmer episode, and they were like, he kind of looked like Kurt Cobain. What I love about Evil Men, and I know we shouldn't be promoting other podcasts, but it's funny. They're always trying to relate their 90s stories back to what Kurt Cobain was up to. But they're talking about Dahmer, and they're like, oh, Jeffrey Dahmer kind of looked like Kurt Cobain. And sure enough.
He kind of does.
He kind of does.
They do.
Oh my God.
They are
and he's related.
Ninth cousin, 3 times removed from Jeffrey Dahmer through one Nathaniel Warren. Taylor Swift, related to Kurt Cobain, 9th cousin, 3 times removed through also Nathaniel Warren. So she's related to Dahmer as well. So anyway, blowing the lid wide open on all these celebrities. You got Marilyn Monroe, Emily Dickinson, not related to Kurt, but to a bunch of other people. So it's kind of wild. So the Nepo baby discourse, I know it's been popular. You know, we don't want people to succeed based on their birth name, but if they actually have talent. And of course, thousands of people were descended from these same people. But it is interesting.
George W. Bush, the world's greatest Nepo baby.
That's right.
Yeah.
Related to Kurt Cobain. Back in the 1600s, of course. Viggo Mortensen is one of his cousins.
Oh, wow.
10th cousin. That is so many generations back where the
it is. But it's fascinating because my family, I think on my grandmother's side, we can trace back to the Huguenots in France.
Oh, wow.
That's where I get my, I don't know. I guess I kind of side with the Protestants, but they're both wrong. Anyway, so yeah, but for the most part, very obscure family. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. I thought I would share it with you just because it's kind of fun. So we'll have a link to that. Yeah. Well, it's kind of fun to play around with. We have a link to that. We'll put that in our show notes. Okay.
He is, 2 things. He's related to every celebrity in the U.S., but not closely. And it also tells me that every celebrity in the U.S. is a WASP.
Yes. That is the thing. This is like the WASP database, actually. Very few people sort of outside this Mayflower, Plymouth colony. So these are basically Plymouth colony kind of type people. Some of them they date back to like England and like Charlemagne even. I think like
Oh,
Edward
wow.
Norton is related to Charlemagne. Some very bizarre.
I
very
mean,
bizarre
everybody's
lineage.
related. When you
Everybody
go
is.
back far
Well,
enough,
that's the thing.
everybody is related to every single person who was alive in Europe in like 900 AD, which I actually think
That's
is
right.
too late
Not
for
me. My
Charlemagne.
family evolved from potatoes.
No, but that's the thing.
Potatoes.
Is that if you follow the biblical begats of the Holy Roman Empire, potato begat potato begat potato begat potato. But there's probably someone who fucked Charlemagne mixed in there,
That's right.
or some other random monarch because the population was so much smaller.
So Charlemagne really thinks potatoes are neat.
Yeah.
Really.
No, that is a good Simpsons reference. I'm impressed.
And I also want to apologize too, because I feel like a good drinking game for this podcast would be every time we quote The Simpsons or make a reference, take a drink.
Yeah.
Dangerous game. I'll talk about that a bit later. But okay.
All right,
let's
I'm drinking tea today, so I'll be all right.
Okay, good. I've coffee and Diet Dr. Pepper. So, okay. So our last episode, we left off with Kurt Cobain, shithole Olympia, or not Olympia. I'm sorry, Aberdeen. He leaves Aberdeen. He's about 20 years old. He's moving to Olympia, Washington. So just to recap a bit here, the history of Nirvana. So Nirvana is Kurt Cobain, guitarist, lead singer, chief songwriter. He met Chris Novoselic, the bassist, to become the bassist in Aberdeen. They met in high school, kind of jamming, playing guitar with each other, with friends, that kind of thing. Novoselic picks up the bass, Kurt's playing guitar, so they're trying to start a band. Kurt, from an early age, wants to be in a rock band. So Kurt and Chris, just before they go to Olympia, though, they do live together for about a year in a shack. It's called a shack, and they had sort of a kiddie pool filled with turtles in the living room, which is what I understand. So this wasn't the nicest place to live.
That's amazing.
Yeah, Kurt's about 19. So his biographer, Charles R. Cross, calls this the shack year. Oh, go ahead.
Oh my God. I was about to say that aside from the fact that where we live is too cold, a kiddie pool with a turtle in it is very much the vibe of the hamlet we're in.
Honestly, yep. I could totally see that.
Yeah,
yep.
it's sad what you know.
A lot of houses that are kind of shack-like in that area too. So
Yep.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we talked about, what was it, shacks and can money in episode 1. Anyways, that is the basic residence and form of currency out here. And we will defend our can money. And if you come for us, we will use strange improvised roll weapon.
Good. And you don't want to go for somebody's shack either.
True.
No, not at all. Those shacks are violently defended.
They should be. You gotta have your shack. This particular shack, you can't visit it anymore. It was torn down because it was a public health hazard. So you can find photos online. This is in Aberdeen. So Charles R. Cross calls this year between 19 and 20 for Kurt. So him and Chris Novoselic living together in the shack. He calls it the shack year. You can find pictures again online of the shack. It's gone now. So at this point, Kurt, he's been doing drugs, as a adolescent, sort of smoking pot here and there. This year, he gets heavy into drinking and drugs. So mostly beer, weed, and huffing aerosols. He likes to kind of do anything.
Oh.
He just loves to do all the drugs. Already, he's 19. And before that, he kind of was, yeah.
I have befriended a number of pretty serious drug users. And all of them, like, I wanted to ask someone to make a tier list of drugs. And at the very bottom was in all caps, any aerosol. They're so rough on you. They cause such a brutal headache most of the time. And they destroy you in a way that is so fast and intense that other drugs often pale. Like, to become, as we would say around here, methy, you need to smoke a lot of meth. You can't do just a couple meths and then, start getting the lesions on your face and the bad teeth. But when you're an enthusiast for a long period of time, that wears on you. But aerosols, you're just, I don't even know who you're going to look like if you do too many aerosols.
Yeah, and I did not know that. That's actually interesting to me because I've never done aerosols. I don't plan to. I just think of, Charlie Day from Always Sunny, just the paint on his face. And they still make a joke, but actually is extremely serious and very dangerous, which I, again, didn't quite realize the extent to which it will destroy you. But yeah, stay away from those. He's getting into those.
I didn't even know it was a thing.
Oh, huff and gas? I mean, that's been on the news.
Yeah.
As one aerosol, and nitrous would be another, which is probably the most popular. And even I've dabbled a little bit, but it's one of those things where if it's sometimes food, it's a very small amount and it's okay, but people get addicted very easily, and that messes up your brain pretty fast, allegedly.
Yeah. That's the thing with drugs. I don't judge people who use them. I think actually they're fun and fine a lot of times. It's it's what the drug is and what it does to you and the amount you take. And again, we'll talk about that in more detail, of course. Really quickly too. If I know all my episodes are probably going to come with like a content warning, I'm talking about suicide in this one and addiction. If you or anybody you know is feeling suicidal, take it seriously. This is just a PSA. I feel like I'm being serious here, but we'll talk about this more later. Go get help. Maybe we'll have a link to a suicide hotline because that's an important thing to do, which we'll talk about. Is if we're talking about suicide, I'm also in this episode in no way going to romanticize it. It's horrible, sad, tragic event. If you are feeling suicidal, if your friends are, you know, somebody who is, talk to somebody. That is the main thing you must do. Okay, so now that over with. So living in a shack, huffing aerosols. He's writing a lot of music, though. He's trying to form a band. He's really, really obsessed with this. Although he's also apparently obsessed with suicide and early death at this time. So his friends are saying, he's already talking about dying young. It's kind of an idea he has. But, you know, teenagers, young people, we have this idea a lot. You know, this is pretty common. So despite his talk of these dark subjects, he is focused on forming a band. So he's spending most of his time writing music. A lot of the songs he'd write sort of in this Aberdeen period, they're going to appear on Incesticide. That's an album of B-sides and singles.
Oh, yeah, I know it.
During this time, yeah, it's a good one. I like some of those tracks. He works part-time as a maintenance man in Ocean Shores, Washington. So he was at the Polynesian resort, which I did stay there. Me and my friends stayed there last summer because Kurt Cobain worked there. And I don't think that place has probably not changed since 87. I'm sure he cleaned the very room we were staying in. It's interesting.
I love this hobby of yours. I love this hobby of yours of following in the footsteps of artists you admire. And anyway, and I know that's the entire point of psychogeography and why we're here in the first place. But it's something that has never occurred to me as something to drive me, and you're making it far more appealing and interesting to me than it was previously.
Yes. I'm glad to hear that. That's good to hear because, this is kind of what I do. Like, I love traveling. You guys know this. This is kind of what I just do. I just like to go and, you know, again, being a dilettante, having a variety of interests, liking a lot of different people and finding them fascinating. There's a lot of places to go. And Aberdeen in particular, like, again, sometimes you end up in not very nice places. One of their early drummers, I forget which drummer it was from Tacoma. And when he went to Aberdeen for the first time, he's like, oh my God, this whole town is a slum. So...
If any of you are from Aberdeen and want to defend your town that we've been shitting on for the last, I don't know, this is part 2, so hour and a half to 2 hours, probably for another hour after this, come in with your best defense of Aberdeen and we will record an advertisement for Aberdeen, Washington. I'll write the music myself and it will be beautiful. We'll shout out Aberdeen. And unless somebody does come up to defend it, it's a shed hole. And that's the point of the story.
Yay, thank you guys. That's a wonderful idea, Dave, because I will say, like, look, I shit on places like this all the time, but I have an affection for places like this too. It's interesting to look at a place where somebody grew up and go, okay, in a way it's relatable. The town I grew up in was not, I would say it was more economically viable and, you know, not as run down, but it's relatable too. And places like this that are kind of crappy, people still live there and that's their home. And I, want to just acknowledge that too, that places can be crappy, but also, and that's kind of part of the psychogeography too, like with Alan Moore. His idea is basically, look, if the place you're from sucks, create some mythology around it, right? So Kurt Cobain at least helped with that, with the mythology. But actually, go ahead.
I have a strong love of a really shitty town.
Yes.
And often anyone who knows me will know that I love to make fun of local towns near where I live, that because of the rural towns in our area, ours is a little nicer than most of them, but it's certainly not like a wealthy, well-to-do, hoity-toity place. It's just we have we're generally growing. But there is something about the culture and magic of just kind of coming from a rough place to grow up with the depressed economy and nothing's new and stuff like that, that is also, I think, essential and good. And again, good artists can come from the most privileged places in the world, but you also need art with a lot of, with bones and teeth mixed in and things like that. And you kind of gotta know some rougher places to be able to do something like that.
Very evocative, Dave. Yes.
Yeah.
I think of Nico Case. I'm going to talk about her a bit more in a different episode, I think. But Nico Case from Tacoma, Washington, writes very evocatively of the Pacific Northwest as well, and
Mhm.
definitely about the rougher sides of life there. But actually, we're not going to make fun of Aberdeen anymore. I think we're
We're going to make fun of Seattle.
Sort of. Yeah, we're gonna make fun of a lot of places. This actually might be a bit more of a serious one than last time, but don't worry, fun will be made. So this is the end of Kurt's time in Aberdeen. If you want to see some evocative photos of some of the places I spoke about, Gillian Garr has a really good article in Goldmine magazine online. It's about exploring Kurt Cobain's Aberdeen. Again, an interesting psychogeographical article in itself. She's just looking around and, soaking in the vibes of Aberdeen. And those pictures are pretty interesting. So you can take a look at those. Oh, sorry. I might have sent you the wrong link. The link I sent you was also somebody on Reddit made a graph of where Kurt Cobain wrote most of his songs.
Yeah, that's a fascinating way to look at this. Here's where he was when he wrote these songs that we obsess about. I will say that a pie chart with that many slices is an affront to God, but it's a cool project nonetheless in the very Reddit obsessive kind of way.
Yes. Yeah, no, and it's interesting because again, with psychogeography, like where he's sort of spending his time in his life, where just living his everyday normal life is going to obviously influence, the music he makes, the things he writes, his attitudes. Okay, I'm going to send you the correct link. You don't need to read this now. This is the Gillian Garr article. It's very good. That'll be in the show notes as well. So Kurt moves to Olympia, Washington. I believe it's about 60 miles south of Seattle. It's sort of at the kind of bottom of Puget Sound there.
That's 100 kilometers for our Canadian listeners.
That's right. It's confusing. I said kilometers last time, and I'm switching to miles because the sources I was reading were American, I believe. So,
we're Canadian, and we will switch between metric and imperial in the most baffling of ways. You're going to have to deal with it because I certainly know my height in feet, my weight in pounds, but I do not know the temperature in Fahrenheit.
No. People would tell me in Europe that their height would be 170 centimeters. I'm like, I'm picturing that's the height of a cat or dog, isn't it? No, that's like a full-grown human. Because in centimeters, I'm like, you can't be that tiny. Because I think, I'm a Canadian, but it's feet and inches is what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the centimeter thing I had to get used to. So, okay. So he moves to Washington. Again, another Tracy Miranda. They met sort of in the punk scene in Aberdeen. So you have Aberdeen, Tacoma, Seattle, Olympia, very, very close by. A lot of towns, heavily populated areas. So there's a good punk scene in the town. So in this general area. So Tracy, they bonded over their love of pet rats, which is very cute. In general, I won't talk about her too much. She's a private individual who's still alive. She seems like a nice person. I'll talk about a bit more about her later, just because she was pretty much one of the key individuals who helped Nirvana become what it was. But let's talk about Olympia, Washington a bit. Have either of you guys been? I think we talked about this. No. I've been there. Yeah, again. So I was there in 2012 and then last summer as well. So it's bigger than Aberdeen, very different culturally. So think of, I don't know, maybe Calgary and Edmonton. So the different kind of, it's cuter than Seattle, I think. It's nicer than Aberdeen. It's a kind of little bohemian town, has more of an art scene. So Evergreen State College, it's one of those gradeless, make your own curricula schools. They attract a lot of students, liberal artist types, hippies kind of thing. So you imagine it's quite the contrast to redneck Aberdeen. And I say redneck, and this is how Kurt Cobain describes Aberdeen. Macho, redneck, homophobic type of backwards place. So Olympia is very different. It's the opposite in a lot of ways, culturally.
Yeah, bohemian, yeah. I think that's the word to run with there.
Yeah. It's also the state capital. Again, I in 2012, I was there by myself. I thought it was a cute place. Again, creepy vibes. Now, that could just be, again, my own, bringing my baggage. I'm thinking about, the Green River Killer and stuff. So, and, all these grunge guys with tragic fates. So you could be I'm bringing my own stuff to it too. But again, same thing. They don't seem to put a lot of care into necessarily the infrastructure. Very crumbly. The roads aren't very good. Kind of a lot of wooden bungalows. A lot of the homes are, again, these similar to Aberdeen, these sort of one-story bungalow type houses. It's nicer than Aberdeen. And he spends about 3 years in Olympia writing music and developing his ethical sort of stance. And this city plays a huge role in his ethical and political development. So in high school, Cobain has said things like, "Oh, I thought I was gay," or "I wish I was gay." He's very anti-homophobia. He's very interested in justice. he has this seed in him in high school already. He's sort of an outsider, and he's wanting to sympathize with the underdog. He feels like, and again, I mentioned before, like he might not have been the entirely miserable bullied person. Like he was funny, had a sense of humor, he had friends, but he's struggling too with feeling like an outsider and feelings of family rejection, things like this.
Well, and also if you like graduate and then go immediately into inhalants and suicidal ideation, teenaged or not, that's actually not a sign of somebody who is super healthy.
No.
Even if the mythology is going to create this sort of archetype of the miserable loner, which isn't quite true. But I think the miserable part probably.
Well, that's why it's tricky. He didn't, and when you go from not graduating high school, right, dropping out, he did even work. Right. And I don't know if this is true or myth. I believe this is probably actually true. He did work as a janitor for a while at the high school he dropped out of. Mm-hmm. So that's going to sting, right? And he's a very contradictory character though, because obviously like he is an outsider but he really wants to be a famous rock star. Like this is the thing he does. He still
that's
wants
interesting.
To be, yeah.
And that's very contrary to the Nirvana mythology, even though
yes.
And again, you'll get into his relationship to fame and all that, I'm sure, in great detail. But the notion that he wanted the fame pretty early on is something I did not know about him.
No, he did. He wants to be a rock star. He wants people to listen to his music, and that's who he's idolizing. It's a way to get out. And it's the kind of thing. If you're a bullied kid, it's like, I'll show them. I can see that's part of that. So he goes to Olympia. Olympia does have and had back then a very active indie music scene. So again, this could be a whole podcast itself. There's a website, the Olympia Music History Project. This documents the bands that were active in the city from 1980 to about 2002. So there's a ton of bands. They're mostly indie. These do include, of course, Riot Girl bands like Bikini Kill.
That's what I associate. Yes. I'm jumping in, but yeah, I associate Riot Girl, which is a genre I love, with Olympia, Washington.
Yep, and you're right to do so because that's where it came from. I personally don't like Riot Girl as much, just because I like a more melodic sound, but I appreciate what they're doing. And I am a fan. So Kurt lives in Olympia for 3 years. He was dating Tracy almost the whole time. Towards the end, he breaks up with her and he starts dating people like Toby Vale. So she's a member of Bikini Kill. He's friends with Kathleen Hanna, also of Bikini Kill. He's getting absorbed into this scene that's very feminist, punk rock, the anti-corporate sort of anti-sellout ethic of a scene. So kids today don't care about this because we're in, I guess, get the bag culture. But being a sellout used to be a big thing.
Right? It was like everything in the 90s where because the notion of advertisements being everywhere was a very 90s thing. And then corporate sheen was something that you had, like every stand-up comedian was wearing a leather jacket, smoking on stage, and then talking about how they'd never sell out. And the notion of using your music in a commercial was considered, like, that's what broke up the Dead Kennedys. And in the early 90s. Right. Yeah, it was a Levi's commercial. It was more complex than that, but that was, speaking of mythologies, but that was a big part of it. And nowadays, because advertising is threaded into literally everything we deal with very few exceptions, the notion of appearing in an advertisement or engaging in advertisements as a form of selling out is something you only do if you're really, really difficult and stubborn, because they're just everywhere all the time and there's no escaping them.
Well, and think about it. If you're a band now, your records are on streaming, you're not making any money from record sales. So, okay, I got to get paid somehow. So, okay, fine, I'll do whatever commercial. There was another band too, I think, that broke up over a commercial. Was that, who did Blister in the Sun?
Violent Femmes.
Yes, they licensed it to Wendy's. Dun, dun,
I know that was.
It was like a Wendy. Yeah. Was that them, I think? Because I believe they broke up over that too.
Well, they got back together. They're still touring. Okay. But I would not be surprised. I vaguely recall something like that. Yeah. And we're not going to Google anything. Because it's fun to sometimes be wrong about something. But I think that was Blister in the Sun in a commercial and controversy is something that clicks around in my head. But yeah, the 90s counterculture, I'm not a sellout, and anti-corporate ethos was so so strong. And a part of this, one of the reasons why I love Riot Girl, it was a very masculine thing.
Yes.
Because when I think about those anti-corporate comedians, Bill Hicks,
Mm-hmm.
for example,
Yeah, exactly.
you
Dennis
get
Leary, who ripped him off.
absolutely. But
Mhm.
Riot Girl was this anti-masculine and anti-corporate thing, and Kurt was always strongly anti-toxic masculinity and these concepts.
Yes.
And again, one of the reasons why, of all the grunge music I listened to when I was a teen, I think I still like Nirvana the best. Oh, by the way, formal pronunciation, you're the expert. Nirvana or Nirvana?
Nirvana.
Got it.
Well, here's the thing. Colloquially, I believe people would say Nirvana. Like Dave Grohl would say Nirvana, but grammatically, it's Nirvana. I say Nirvana,
Okay,
but
fair enough.
I think they're like I could hear Kurt saying Nirvana, right?
Yeah.
Pronunciation.
Huh.
I believe either is okay, but I say Nirvana.
I'll do the Canadian thing and switch pronunciations every word then.
That's
But
fine.
yeah, one of the reasons why Nirvana still holds up for me is there was just a very deep sense of earnestness about that kind of thing.
Yes.
And I love some earnest ass.
Me too. Yes, they are, because they are. Like he was writing songs about his experience, like we said. And he is writing punk music, and it was even, and you can see in Bleach, there is this conflict with the sort of the masculine, like heavy metal grunge. A lot of it is like sludge metal, which I don't love either, but you see him with songs like About a Girl moving into a more jangly pop punk aesthetic too. So he's kind of trying to, be able to express himself in more creative ways too. Because again, I would say toxic masculinity is constraining to your creativity as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you're right, exactly right about that anti-sellout culture. So he's sorry, I said a lot of S's there. Let's cut that. Olympia sort of represents Cobain's ethical and musical growth, his move away from Aberdeen to a more cosmopolitan town, or a place that would be more accepting of him, right? So as he's moving away from Aberdeen, he's growing, moving away, sort of maybe musically, psychologically, all this stuff. Although again, he died at 27, so he didn't get that much chance to grow as a person. And when you're on heroin for a long time, that also hinders that, but we'll get into that. So Tracy and Kurt, they are together. They move into a 3-plex in Olympia, Washington. Again, I've been here. It's a little duplex. It's cute. Looks fine for now. Tracy Miranda, she deserves a medal, or she deserves a cut of the royalties, some recognition. I believe she was there when when Nirvana was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because she is the reason why Nirvana existed, I would say. Tracy was working full time, basically, and Kurt stayed home and he would paint. They said his day was he'd get up at noon, eat some mac and cheese, watch TV and play guitar and write songs, and maybe do some art. Later on, he'd be touring a lot with Nirvana. He's only basically able to do this because Tracy's supporting him financially. So this house in Pear Street, it's the blue one, little blue house. You can see that in some of the pictures I sent to you. He could not have written, so he wrote basically all of Nevermind in this duplex. This is the album that's going to make him famous. He writes it all in this duplex, and basically it was because he wouldn't have been able to do this if Tracy was not supporting him financially. So eventually, after a couple of years, they are going to break up. Kurt and Tracy will break up. I believe he breaks up with her, but there was issues mutually. And Dave Grohl would eventually move into this apartment as well, be Kurt's roommate. All right, so that's just the story of his Pear Street residence. I'm going to back up a bit to where Nirvana is as a band. So he's moved to Olympia. It's 1987. Okay. At this point, the core of Nirvana is Kurt and Chris. Oh, speaking of pronunciation, I thought it was Chris Novoselic for like 30 years. It's Chris Novoselic. It's the correct Croatian pronunciation, Novoselic.
Yes, the ch at the end of, like, the last two letters are TS, I imagine, right?
C.
That's right. Oh no, it's C, but it's
C, right?
TS.
Yeah. Sorry, my mistake. I was confusing the TS and the C because I'm brain dead. Anyways, yeah, I'm a big Chris Novoselic fan.
Yes, you know what? Me too. Nice guy. He's a nice guy. 6'7", 6'8", something like that. Very tall man.
Giant, looming, very deeply ironic bass player, but he's my favorite. He's my favorite Nirvana member.
Yeah, he seems like a nice guy. So at this time, it's Kurt and Chris. They're going through a lot of drummers. I don't want to name all of them. One of them's named Aaron. One of them's named Chad. I don't want to disrespect them, but I couldn't go into that much detail. Okay, so they're playing a lot of local gigs, building a reputation, and they're like house parties, small like Legion halls, this sort of thing, and they're sending demo tapes to record labels. Kurt is nonstop wanting to get a record deal because he wanted to be a rock star. So skipping ahead a bit, again, I'm going to elide details here, but so essentially they save up some money. They record and release their first album, Bleach, in 1989. It's released by Sub Pop Records. One word, Sub Pop. Sub Pop's an indie label out of Seattle. They formed in 87. They're a brand new thing. Pavitt and Poneman, they're very famous.
They're one of the huge, and they're one of the like record labels that defines a movement in music kind of record labels.
Yep, exactly right. So they've released albums by Mudhoney, Soundgarden, Green River, I believe, at this point. So during this time, they've doing local gigs. Nirvana is touring locally, so they are building a following in the Pacific Northwest. And then they eventually go on tour in Europe as well. So they're touring Europe and the UK by 1989. So that's something to remember. Like imagine coming from Aberdeen, and then 2 years later, you're doing gigs in London or in Germany.
That is pretty
Amsterdam.
fast. And again, that is tying in with right music, right time, right band, and everything's just sort of heading correctly.
That's right. And speaking of hitting correctly, Dave Grohl is the final piece. He joins the band in, I believe, 89 or 90. And then this is when Nirvana sort of really gets their sound together, right? Dave Grohl, incredible drummer. They eventually signed to a major label, Geffen Records. So again, can't go into that in too much detail. It's an interesting choice, though. So Sonic Youth is on Geffen Records. Sonic Youth probably deserves their own episode, like I'll say for everything here. But they're not. So they've signed to Geffen. It's a major label with sort of a little bit more indie cred. They give Sonic Youth quite a bit of freedom to release the music they want. Sonic Youth, of course, if you're familiar, out of the New York's punk art scene in the 70s and 80s. So they're basically a band that they're on a record label, but they get to do whatever they want. And they have a large following, but nothing massive. They're consistently pulling in a lot of people to their shows, but they're not huge, right? This is kind of, and I believe this is sort of the level Kurt Cobain kind of aspired to. And I think he said that somewhere else, where he kind of wanted to be as big as Sonic Youth, right?
That sounds...
You can be a touring band.
That sounds ideal in that Sonic Youth were, again, had a successful career, and they're a band that are known, but were never like regularly top 40.
Exactly. And they still have the ethic, right? Like they come out of this DIY art scene in New York City as well. So, right. But you do see now they're on a light label. They have managers now. They have assistants. They have all these people in their sort of in the background on a management team, right? So this is sort of where the business aspect of the music scene is clashing with the ethics. So it's a bit of a foreshadowing. So let's skip ahead to 1990. They sign with Geffen Records. They record Nevermind with Butch Vig. I believe they record it in the Midwest somewhere, Milwaukee, I think. But yeah, it's a regular album. Later on, they think it was cleaned up too much. They didn't like the recording he did. But anyway, nevertheless, Nevermind is a perfect album, essentially. The video for Smells Like Teen Spirit is filmed in LA. And the record is set to be released on September 24th, 1991. So remember, this is still, they do have a pretty loyal following in the Pacific Northwest, and they're touring in the States and Europe a bit, and people do like them.
Yes.
But everyone's like, yeah, we'll probably sell 100,000 copies. They head to Europe to go on tour. And then while they're away, Kurt was evicted from his apartment in Olympia.
Oh, no.
So he's homeless on tour. And while they're away, of course, in America, the video for Smells Like Teen Spirit is getting a ton of airplay on MTV. MTV is a huge thing. It's playing their video a lot. They're getting a lot of requests for it. Record sales are rising quickly. Nobody expected this at all. Nirvana didn't expect this. Nobody on their management team expected this. Nobody. They come back from Europe. Go ahead.
And you're in Europe. This is
Yes.
pre any kind of internet that people would regularly use.
Uh-huh.
And so information travels slowly unless they're spending time to take a phone call with an 8-hour time difference. So maybe they get a little bit of a hint that it's doing well, but the intensity of it, I just can't imagine.
Nope.
What were you two doing in 1991?
I was 9.
I was 11.
I think of that playing in the yard.
Yeah.
What were you doing?
I was in the Netherlands.
I'm jealous.
Yeah.
That's right. You were,
yes.
yeah.
I lived in
Limburg,
Limburg
yes.
for a year. Yes.
Nice. You met a cross paths with Kurt Cobain sometime.
Amazing.
They probably toured through there. Yeah, no, 91. Yeah, I was 9 years old, just into horses and running around the yard, riding my bike.
Beautiful.
But yes, yeah,
Yeah.
good times, kind of. Okay, so Nirvana, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. So yeah, they're in Europe. They have no idea what's going on, and they come back from Europe, and they're like, "Oh no, you're like the biggest rock band in the world now." So they'd found that some of the shows they'd booked in Europe and the States were just at wildly small venues because they're huge. And what is fascinating when you think about it in hindsight is how quickly everything just goes off the rails. So this is a man, he's 20, what year is this? He's, 24 years old. He's going to be dead in 2.5 years. Like,
That's
this is
so weird to think about it that way.
Yes. Because I've been a Nirvana fan since I was about 12, 13. I came to it after he's passed, of course, just because I was a child. And my older brother got me into Nirvana sort of later on. But so in hindsight, it's very shocking. So I can't imagine sort of being being older and being conscious of this. Like if I'd been a Nirvana fan since like 1990, what a shocking thing. Like in 2 years, he's gone, basically. It's shocking, but also if you know what's going on in his private life, maybe not. So this is where we have to talk about heroin and about Courtney Love. So I'm just FYI, I'm going to just show you my t-shirt I'm wearing. I'm wearing my Doll Parts t-shirt, and I'm under a table in my podcasting den, so it looks kind of creepy. But basically, it's a comic book cover. I think similar to yours, Dave. It's Doll Parts, it's Courtney Love, and her bandmates. She's being menaced by a man with a knife, and her legs are kind of floating like she's been bisected.
That's a hell of a t-shirt. I love that.
Yeah, it fucking rips.
Yeah, what a great shirt.
Scotland for some reason, randomly this summer. So yeah, random find.
Nice.
Anyway, it's delightful. Okay, so we can cut that or we can keep it in as much as you like. But okay, so she's a complex. Courtney Love is a very complex person, right? I'll start talking about her. So she's part of the music scene in general as well, sort of based in Portland sometimes, LA sometimes, Chicago. She's kind of floating around this music scene in the 90s. They meet at some point in 1990. A lot of people say, oh, it was at a Butthole Surfers concert. It's hard to say. Recollections vary. Kurt is also using heroin at this time too. And I'm going to get into when he started that a little bit earlier, or a little bit later, I mean. But yeah, so Kurt's using heroin, he's touring, he's in the scene, he's single. So he dated Toby Vale for a while. She's one of the Bikini Kill founders. Yep. She's very into non-monogamy. So he wrote Lounge Act about her.
Oh, really?
I'll keep fighting jealousy till it's fucking gone. Yeah. So he tried. He tried to be a non-monogamous guy, had a hard time. So he gets together with Courtney Love, and they sort of immediately begin a mutual slide into heroin use and melodrama. So Courtney is a very complex person, as is Kurt. So as a teenager, I was a huge fan, right? And what is cool about her and Kurt as well is she introduced me to feminism. Like in Rolling Stone interviews, she would name drop like Susan Faludi. So I'm reading Backlash and I'm 13, like, hell yeah. Like,
that's
Kurt
so
Cobain
cool.
And Courtney Love were hugely influential on, the kind of my ethical development and the person I sort of turned out to be. Like I was already drawn to sort of ideas of justice and things like this, but having names and things to look at, books to read was very, very useful.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And she's a smart person. She had a very difficult childhood though. And I do believe she would be very difficult to live with. Right.
And as in the first part of this, I planted my flag as a giant Courtney Love fan. But this is not to say that she was a flawless or easy to deal with or even pleasant person.
No. And who is, right? So she was a little bit older than Kurt. I believe she was born in 1964, so she's about 3 years older. Her dad is a huge piece of shit. He was really into the hippie scene in the 1960s, apparently gave her LSD as a child.
Jesus
Christ.
What? And you can read, you kind of wonder if that's true, but you read Joan Didion, and I think Joan Didion kind of hates hippies, but she she does portray in her journalism hippies in the 60s, Haight-Ashbury giving their kids LSD.
No,
like 4-year-olds.
I find that completely unsurprising, actually,
Yeah.
because there was a, speaking of mythologies, this magical new drug, people are going to give it superpowers.
Yeah. And look, I have never tried LSD. One of those ones that I would like to try, to be honest, because I think it can be actually helpful. Hallucinogenics, I think, don't give them to kids. You do those when you're an adult and you're in a safe spot where you can, use it to enhance your lifestyle. Or, it probably has a lot of psychologically beneficial aspects, but you're not giving it to 4-year-olds for no reason. Like, it's horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's raised by abusive parents. She's a lot of issues, boarding schools, traveled all around. She's, worked as a stripper, all these things, which again, no judgment. She's trying to survive. She's part of the music scene too. She also is very ambitious, wants to be a rock star. Okay, so she's in the scene, she's dating other people. And what also drives me crazy is people talk about, oh, she's wild. Oh, she gets so much criticism and hate. The things she did compared to what male rock stars, she slept with a couple other rock stars. Ooh, she dabbled in drugs. Ooh, big deal. Like, she wasn't.
Oh my God, you mean she was a musician
groupies
in this hot music scene where like all the musicians are hanging out and doing drugs all the time, and they had sex with each other? Oh my word, she's to blame for all of it. It's just fucking nonsense.
It is total nonsense. Like, the crap that she gets for not really behavior, and we'll talk about some of the drug use later, but the bullshit that she that's been thrown at her is very unfair. It is obviously misogynist. She's not keeping groupies like in her 14-year-olds in her closet to, you know what I mean? Like some of these rock stars from the 70s.
Oh, like the Steven Tyler stories, or like all the insane stuff that different rock stars did.
That's fine. And also, one story that I found interesting too, she called out Harvey Weinstein pretty early on. Why hasn't she been in a movie in a long time? Interesting. Because she was an actress. Mm-hmm. She also toured with Marilyn Manson very briefly. And I remember the press at the time was like, and their tour fell apart very quickly. And everyone's like, oh, Courtney Love's just crazy. That's why. She's gross. What a nasty person. She quit the tour because of the way Marilyn Manson was treating his underage groupies.
Oh, wow.
She was disgusted by his behavior. That's why. And nobody hears about that. And now it's revealed, okay, this guy's a piece of shit. But she called people on pretty early. She called people on things pretty early on too. So again,
extremely awesome person. Just again, one who I would say wore her flaws as strongly as her strengths, but her strengths are admirable.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. I like that. Thanks, Dave. Yes.
Or she's alive.
Eventually,
yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's the thing. Oh, yes, she is. Yes. And I, wish her well, interestingly enough, I don't know if you are aware of this, maybe Dave is, but Tracy. So Kurt Cobain and Tony Hawk share a grandchild.
Yep.
Oh, I heard about that.
Yeah. So Kurt Cobain and Courtney Love get married in 92. Frances Bean is born in 92. And she eventually, I think last year, married Tony Hawk's son. So, I mean, this is again, the kind of Nepo baby, everyone's related kind of thing. But it is interesting. I'm like, good for them.
Well, and I mean, if you're Kurt Cobain and Courtney Love's kid, you're going to be hanging out in places where a kid of another famous person is present.
Yes.
Like, that's just how it works.
Oh, yeah. It's just kind of interesting. It's like, who'd have known?
Mm-hmm.
So, Kurt and Courtney seems like they really do love each other. You can see interviews with them. You can see pictures. But I would say they both had unaddressed psychological issues, extreme codependency. So again, they're young people, they're kids. When they meet, they're like 24, she's 26, 27, 28, like they're young, right? They were raised by sort of absentee parents, don't seem to know how to regulate their emotions. So their relationship does seem genuinely tumultuous. They fought and argued a lot. I believe their fights became physical. It's hard to say. It seems like slap fights. Courtney Love is known to have punched people. So she punched Kathleen Hanna in the face. Lollapalooza 95, I believe.
Yes, she did.
So they're
You have two heroin addicts with too much money.
Yes.
Who both have like severe psychological issues, trapped in, and having known enough people who particularly when you're on junk, if you are tied at the hip to somebody else who's using with you, you just like grab each other and then twirl in this toxic spiral downwards. It's a pattern you see in a million people.
That's right. Yes, that's right. So they both use heroin, but seems like Cobain used way more heroin than Courtney Love did. And he started using drugs, of course, before he ever met her. Because that was a rumor early on, too, is that she got into heroin. That's, in fact, the opposite is more likely true. Like, Courtney Love did heroin as well, but she wasn't an addict at that point. So what ends up happening in their relationship over the sort of the two and a half years they're married is she kind of takes over the business aspect of his life. And he's just drifting further off into heroin abuse.
Mm-hmm.
So he probably started using heroin in 89 or 90. So while he's living in Aberdeen, he's living in Olympia, I believe, at this point. So he kind of was doing it casually, is my understanding. But already by 1991, by the time Nevermind is released, he's a heroin addict. He's a full-on heroin addict by 1991. So by the time he's famous, heroin addict the entire time. So he claims, now this is where it's going to get speculative and where I might talk about some personal stuff to a degree. So Cobain claims that he was using heroin because he had mysterious stomach issues. No doctors could solve it. And the only thing that fixed his stomach pain was heroin.
Oh.
Yeah.
I heard that too.
Yeah. Buzz Osborne, who's the lead singer of Melvins, very close friend of Kurt Cobain's, introduced Dave Grohl to him, I believe. He claims that this is a lie. He's like, no, he was lying about his stomach pains because he wanted to use heroin under a cloud of sympathy. And honestly, I'm going to get a bit honest here. As somebody with addiction issues myself, I'm like, yeah, that tracks.
Oh, yeah. That
tracks.
Makes perfect sense. And, I mean, maybe he had, but yeah, that is the most plausible thing I've ever heard in my life. It's just,
I know.
And also it gives you the cloud of sympathy, and it also gives you your rationalization, where, and again, like the psychology of it could be part lie, part actually believing a lie. And you know, how, your mind just kind of locks into things like that, and you're telling everyone the same thing all the time. So that just tracks so hard.
Yeah, and it's the mythology, too. Oh, his burning, nauseous stomach. He does reference that in his suicide note, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to make fun of him. He probably had anxiety and was stressed out.
Oh, probably.
Unfortunately, well, like it or not, his autopsy report is on Internet Archive. Tellingly, normal stomach, no issues. So that just a little bit more evidence there. So again, I'm going to skip over some details of his life a bit just to kind of look at the psychogeographical sense of things. Again, mapping his psychological state to where he lives. We kind of went over this. He grows up in this depressing, backwards macho culture of Aberdeen. He's already rebelling against this place, and then he goes to Olympia. Again, polar opposite of Aberdeen culturally. Writing his music, developing an ethical sensibility when it comes to politics. He also, again, pro-gay rights. There is an interesting theory, which I can't speak to this because only Kurt Cobain can, that he was actually a trans woman because he loves to wear dresses. There's a journalist, Juno Stump. Juno Stump is a trans woman herself, and she writes a pretty compelling argument that Kurt was trans. But again, nobody can say this. And that's a whole episode in itself. But look into that; it's fascinating.
I'm just going to uncritically buy the Kurt was an egg theory.
Well,
what's an egg?
An egg when it hatches, a chick comes out.
That's right.
Oh,
so it's like you're before you come out as trans, you're kind of
it's a
comment.
Yeah, it's a term. It's a term for somebody who is either closeted or just completely unaware. Usually, someone is completely unaware, and I mean, maybe he was or wasn't, but considering, it's plausible at the very least. I don't hate the idea.
No, and it adds to it enriches and adds to the complexity of him. And you can, I think Juno Stump posted a video on YouTube of Kurt Cobain in an interview. They asked him, why do you wear dresses? He's like, well, I wear them at home sometimes. They're comfortable, okay? And it kind of rolls his eyes in a very cute way. And I'm like, or it's kind of clear. Or there's, I read somewhere else, and I couldn't find this before. I'm just pulling this off the top of my head. I'll look into it later. But there's a quote from somebody who said Kurt did a show. His face was full of acne and stuff, whatever. He does the show. He comes off stage, puts on a full face of women's makeup, walks out.
Wow.
She was doing that for her.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It really does feel. And he did. He wore women's dresses all the time.
Mm-hmm.
He felt like, and again, I'm not saying Courtney Love has a type. Her first husband is now a trans woman. Courtney Love was married to, at the time they were called Falling James Moreland. Their marriage was annulled, and then eventually she or they, I'm not sure, I apologize, has come out as trans. So there could be a pattern. Anyway, just a little piece of evidence. And again, who's to say? It's his life, and good for him or her if they were trans, or them. But I would say we don't know. But it adds to the complexity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So at this time, he's touring a lot. His life isn't his own anymore, I get the sense. Because, Nevermind just takes off and he's an instant rock star. Courtney Love tells a story of them in LA together where he has a panic attack in the bathtub. Like, oh, what am I going to do? I'm going to be a rock star. I can't handle this.
Oh, wow.
Because he wanted to be a rock star, but then when it actually happened, I think he freaked the fuck out.
Well, it's also like you're thirsty, and then somebody shoots you in the face with a pressure washer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's about right. So, and again, psychologically, where he's moving, he moves to LA with Courtney Love in 92. So again, he's not home a lot. He's on tour a lot at this time. They do take some breaks, and he's taking drugs and things and has issue being on tour, but he has found himself pretty immediately. Like, this is 92. He's living in Olympia. He's getting evicted in 91. A year later, he's living in a house in the Hollywood Hills, the very epicenter of this music business, this showbiz corporate world he really hates.
Yeah.
So again, you can see a picture of that house. It looks like a cute one. It's probably going to be demolished, unfortunately. It's not a glamorous mansion, right? It's a cute place, which I'll send you a link to. I wish I could buy. It's under $1 million because it's probably going to be torn down. But yeah, so he's not unreasonably living in a nice place in LA. But to him, you're living in a shack with turtles in the living room. And now you're in Philip Ahn, famous actor. You're in his former house. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's got to be very jarring. And, Courtney Love, not to blame her. I believe she's more ambitious, and I don't think she cares so much about selling out. She doesn't care. She's like, no, I want to be a rock star. This is what I want. Let's make the money. It's what we deserve. Sure. So she's buying a Lexus. Kurt doesn't like this. There are clashes. And I believe he also, on Courtney's urging, decided to, Nirvana was splitting royalties 3 ways. It almost broke up Nirvana because he said, no, actually, I want more than money because I do all the songwriting and I take more of the heat from being famous, which isn't wrong, but
it's also a decision it's also a decision you make before you get before the money comes in, not after.
Yep, that's right.
You and also, like, I mean, come on, there's enough money, but I get exactly why he'd think that, and anybody in his position would, but oh boy, yeah. What do you do about that, right? Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah. That's a very tough one.
And I see what you mean about the house. It's not an ostentatious sort of celebrity mansion. It is a large, very modern for that time, nice looking house.
Yeah. Okay, yes. So again, not ostentatious. It's a cute house. They say it's a mixture of the craftsman style with Japanese influence, which is nice. It's cute. Okay. So they don't live in this house in LA for very long. They're there from sort of 92 to 93. Frances is born in 92, I think in the summer. This is the house she's taken to. Again, very tragically, I'd say, or very sadly, there were rumors about Courtney doing drugs while she was pregnant. And this is because infamously, a Vanity Fair article came out in which she was smoking while pregnant, which is not great. My understanding is that she was using heroin. She found out she was pregnant and then quit, which that seems legitimate and reasonable. But what people took this as, they said, well, no. She was using heroin while she was pregnant.
So potentially technically true, but also not. Well, again, this is like, is it true or not? Well, yes, comma. She quit as soon as she found out. And do you give her the benefit of the doubt knowing she's an addict? In the end, it doesn't really matter. But it does. I think what matters more is the narrative of the I go back to the Roman narrative of how the wicked stepmother is behind all the assassinations and how all good bands are destroyed by evil women.
Yeah, the Yoko Ono myth. Yeah, no, that's totally right. Yeah. And women just get more of the blame. Like, it's more the criticism. And because, and unfortunately, like, Frances was taken away for a couple of weeks by CPS. She was living with family, I believe Courtney's sister. But that's a terrible thing to do to a young family, like, very publicly in the spotlight. So he's dealing with all this too immediately. Like, he's a kid from Aberdeen. Like, that's what blows my mind. Again, you have to look at this in human terms. Okay, so he's in this house in the Hollywood Hills. He's doing a lot of drugs. He's writing in utero, and he's hanging out in the closet mostly. So he's writing in utero in a closet in the house in the Hollywood Hills. Seems
I won't be one to
actually.
judge.
I know.
As I'm currently recording this from a closet.
Well, and I'm sitting under a table with blankets like I live.
I'm in an office.
All right, I'm in a grown-up fort right now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, looks great. You're the most grown-up of us all.
You look very cozy, Jen.
Oh, thanks.
You do.
I am, except for like the leg situation. I need to figure out about not, my circulation getting cut off, but I'll sort that out between episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this house on Google Maps is listed as in utero house, which if you didn't know who Kurt Cobain was, you'd be like, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
In utero house. Okay. So In Utero is their third album. It's my favorite Nirvana album, personally.
It's the best.
It is. It is their best one. More true to the sound they wanted, I think, at the time. Great songs. They recorded in Wisconsin in 93. Released in the fall of 93 as well. You look at the lyrics and the general vibe of In Utero. This man is struggling, right?
This is a bleak-ass album.
It is. He's struggling with his wife, with fame, being a parent, with fame, frustration at being the voice of a generation.
Also fame.
Yes, he wanted to be famous, but he didn't want oh no, I'm the famous rock star now. Or maybe he did.
You like donuts, huh? Have all the donuts in the world.
Yeah.
More.
I guess
that's Courtney Love.
Richards. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There you go. Yes, exactly. More. That's Courtney. Yes, she wants all of this. I think. Which again, whatever. When men want it, it's fine.
Yeah, it's like get the
bag. Again, if a woman's ambitious, I don't like it. So again, Marcus Parks in Last Podcast on the Left, they again do a really good series debunking the murder conspiracy. But he points out all apologies. He's screaming married, buried over and over again.
Yeah.
So I would say the relationship is not going well. Again, there's probably verbal abuse on both sides. We said physical altercations. Apparently, during the recording of In Utero, Courtney was very abusive, physically or verbally towards him. Again, not great.
Well, and I again, we have
it's mutual.
Two psychologically damaged people. Assuming Courtney's clean at this time, she is pregnant. Kurt is locked in a closet all the time. While his wife is pregnant.
She has a child.
Right, no, Frances Bean had been taken away and then brought back. You're right. But so she might be using again. But the point is that I don't think anybody would expect them to treat each other well at this point. There's nothing healthy about this.
No, well, that's exactly so. Yeah, there's not. And if you think about the situation from her point of view, so she has a band herself. Hole was more famous than Nirvana at first, in the UK especially. She is recording an album. She's dealing with her trying to, write songs herself. Sorry. She's writing an album. She's busy. She has her own, band to promote. She wants to tour. And she's a child. And this man, her husband, is just on heroin, nodding out all the time.
Yeah.
That's what when you're on heroin, you're not up and about and having a good time. No, he's just sleeping. You're nodding off.
Oh,
so
wow.
At this point, and so again, with Courtney Love and Frances, so Frances is born, again, just to recap, she's totally healthy at birth, totally fine. There's nothing wrong with her. There's no impact for any drugs that might have been in Courtney's system. It's whatever, nicotine, whatever. Frances is totally fine and healthy. She still is. Again, she has her own kid now. She's doing great. Okay. So at this point, though, 93, Cobain's dealing with a lot. The last 6 months or so of his life, though, this is chaos. This is terminal spiral here. So by 93, he's using an estimated $400 worth of heroin a day. Look, I haven't tried heroin yet, but I'm to understand that this is an insane amount of heroin to use.
Jesus Christ.
Yes. Last Podcast on the Left, they note that Courtney maybe used $20 worth of heroin at her worst. So she's dabbling, right? She's dabbling in the drugs kind of for street cred is their interpretation, right? But because, maybe they're fun. She's self-medicating too, but $400 a day of heroin is crazy. Okay. He's a huge addict. Okay. But still, In Utero's comes out in fall of 93. Nirvana records MTV Unplugged, that session in November of 1993. He was shooting up right before the show, goes on stage, kills it.
That's probably
he deliberately,
one of the
according to people, wanted
most
that
famous
set
and best
to look
live
like a
albums
funeral.
ever recorded. And absolutely set to look like a funeral.
Yes.
There's flowers everywhere.
Yep. So,
fun fact, I learned to play guitar by just learning the entirety of Unplugged in New York.
Really?
Yep.
That's amazing. I learned to play guitar by learning a lot of Nirvana songs too. Like the first song I could ever play was about a girl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh,
great. Yeah.
E minor
Memories,
to
man.
G, baby.
What was that?
E minor to G.
I know. Yeah. E minor. I know. Got to memorize, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that and the Come As You Are riff.
Yeah. That is the first thing any guitarist in the 90s learned how to play was the Come As You Are riff.
That is hilarious. That's exactly right. That's exactly what my friend showed me the first time I played guitar.
Same.
So, but Tracy, you play balalaika. That's like a guitar.
no,
Isn't
I
it?
don't.
Oh.
Tracy plays reed instruments, clarinet, saxophone.
Well, that's awesome. I can't. So there you go. And guitar is overrated. Everyone plays guitar.
Banjo's where it's at.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's that too. It's not ukulele time anymore. The time of the ukulele hipster is done. Okay.
It is
so
fast.
Again, back. Yeah, it is. Back to Kurt Cobain's downward spiral. So January 1994, Kurt and Courtney purchase and move into their mansion in Seattle on Lake Washington Boulevard. This is sort of infamous mansion. Again, you can see pictures of it. It's cute. It doesn't. Again, it's not like ostentatious. It's like it has like wood shingles on the side. It's kind of, I don't know what style you'd call it, but it's not like this, glass box. It's pretty modest. Has a little garage and a greenhouse in the back too, and it's next to a park. I've been there twice. It's not that ostentatious. You can't even really see it at this point. They put up a gate in front and a big fence. You can't even really see the house. You can kind of like see the roof and whatever. Not much to see there, but
so
it's a nice location, beautiful view.
As far as mansions go, it's not particularly mansiony.
Yeah, again, he's trying to stay reasonable. Okay,
I respect that.
Yeah, but again, his small, mundane, normal private life is done, right? So he's again what I would kind of call a terminal spiral with mental health and addiction. So again, I want to get a little bit personal because again, it's part of psychogeography. It's part of what we bring to our travels and our interactions with mythologies and with people. So I've struggled with addiction to alcohol. And in my experience, things can be sort of going along pretty steady and normal in a bad way, but then they will spiral out of control very quickly for various reasons. In my particular case, again, not to reveal too much, but yeah, I had an alcohol addiction and it spiraled out of control when I started taking benzodiazepines with that.
Oh, benzos and alcohol are a bad mix.
Yes. I had a really great doctor who just gave me an unlimited refill for those. So that's sort of when, for me, things started going off the rails really quickly. Right? And this happens with Kurt Cobain too. Not that he's given benzos, but just things are spiraling out of control for a couple of reasons. So again, they do their Unplugged show. They go on tour to promote In Utero, but this is a pretty disastrous tour. Honestly, most of Nirvana's tours seem to have been kind of hit or miss because they're very notorious for having wild shows where Kurt's smashing his guitar. They're jumping into the drum kits. There's all these. You can see a lot of live shows, live videos online. They're quite raucous shows, and that's also going to be hard on your health. But they're canceling his shows a lot because Kurt is sick. Oftentimes, he's just overdosing. He's overdosing on heroin a lot. So very frequently, the last 6 months of his life, he's overdosing on heroin quite regularly. And Courtney's around. She tends to be the one who's reviving him with various. Again, I'm not an expert on this. Various drugs and counteractive remedies. I'm always think of Pulp Fiction.
Oh yeah, with the adrenaline, but whatever they had in '93,
whatever they were doing. And again, very sadly, Chris Novoselic, one of his, again, bassist, close friends, he says that Kurt just wanted to be unconscious all the time, which, not good. Yes, very sad. So here's where things, again, kind of start spiraling a bit. He's, under a lot of pressure. There's a 96 article called The Kurt Cobain Suicide Crisis, Perspectives from Research, Public Health, and the News Media. A very interesting article. It was written by some public health experts, psychiatrists, and a journalist. They probably needed the rock star, the rock aspect of it, pop culture. So I'm going to read this because it's a pretty accurate, sort of pithy account of his last sort of 3 weeks alive, last month or so. So on March 14th, 1994, they're on tour in Rome. Kurt Cobain overdosed on champagne and tranquilizers. Clearly a foiled suicide attempt. His overdose was reported publicly as an accident Nirvana canceled their European tour, and Cobain returned to Seattle to recuperate. Less than 2 weeks later, on March 16th, 94, he locked himself in a room with his guns. The police were called by Courtney Love to intervene. On March 28th, after an AA-type intervention by Courtney Love and friends, Cobain reluctantly entered a drug treatment center near Los Angeles. He stayed less than 2 days, then disappeared. So he just walked out, basically.
Damn.
Yeah, he hopped over a wall and took off. He was not seen again. He was, but not by anyone who kind of knew him. Was not seen again until his body was found on April 8th by an electrician. Cobain was sprawled on the floor of a garage apartment at his home, dead of a shotgun wound to the head. He'd been dead for 3 days, and a suicide note was left. Toxicological analyses revealed high levels of heroin and Valium in his blood. And that's basically it. So, yeah, that's a quote from that article. I appreciate the pithiness. Gets to the point, makes a chain of events very clear.
Yeah, there is a very clear narrative here of, hey, this extremely suicidal addict kept trying to kill himself and then eventually succeeded.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much, yeah. Misses out on some key details that I'll get into. And I think these details are sort of where the conspiracy theories about his death kind of come from.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the conspiracy theories this is the kind of thinking, especially, well, not especially, but in this case also, again, it's totally divorced from the mundane and the everyday. It is not anchored in physical reality or the reality of like actual human behavior. Right. So I think, you go to visit these places, you read about people, you got to watch videos, you look at things from their point of view. You bring people's humanity to the fore and you really realize like, okay, how plausible. So you think about, you have a bunch of heroin addicts in their 20s and one of them is a rich rock star. Yeah. His wife's going to get it together to find somebody with a shotgun who's going to sneak into their garage, or rather shoot Kurt with his own gun, sneak away, never be found ever.
Yeah.
Leave no evidence behind. All these heroin addicts, all these drug addicts, and Courtney had relapsed while Kurt was missing because she's freaking out. So they're all like, this is just not plausible and not within the realms of reality, frankly.
It's a thing about, and I love the term conspiracism, which is the sort of the bent towards believing conspiracies is the narrative about how the world works, because horrible things occurring can be explaining them in the terms of there is a malevolent actor who took this from you is so much more psychologically comforting. And it also makes you feel smart as opposed to, no, just a bad thing happened. And again, we are in a world where conspiracy theories are as mainstream as, the truth by media, which is as, the nature of truth is another episode. But the Wonderkamer goes into the nature of truth itself. Jesus. But I think conspiracism and conspiracy theories would be interesting. But it's so much easier to believe the folktale of the evil woman did it, because in the folktale, the heroes are only ever undone by villains rather than themselves.
Yes. That's a good point. Because a lot of this is it's all to a degree what he's done to himself, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah.
So it's also missing out on sort of what his last days were actually like. I don't know if you've seen the film by Gus Van Sant, Last Days.
No.
Gus Van Sant has a film called Last Days. It seems actually kind of accurate to what his life was like in his last few days. This film is basically a man, I believe his name is Blake. It's clearly supposed to be Kurt Cobain. He's just wandering around, doing heroin, playing guitar, writing a note, buying drugs. That's all the movie is. There's barely any dialogue. It's just this guy wandering around. It's really, really well done. And I feel like it's very evocative of what his final days were probably like, right? So he leaves LA, he flies back to Seattle. People can't find him. They cancel his credit card. They're trying to, locate him in some way. They're trying to find out, going to his dealers, right? Check out his dealers' houses, right? He's buying a lot of drugs, right? So very bleak couple days. I'll talk about, it's such a very creepy, weird situation. So when he's back in Seattle at his mansion, he wasn't alone in the house. And this is a very bizarre character. So Courtney Love had hired this guy, Callie DeWitt. His name is Michael DeWitt. They call him Callie because he's from California. Charles R. Cross calls him the Kato Kalin of the Cobain household. So This guy is supposedly a nanny to Frances Bean. Frances is with Courtney in LA. She's not in the house. It's Callie and his girlfriend who's on spring break from boarding school. I'm like, did I read this? So this is a man in his late 20s with a girlfriend who's maybe 17, 18, just hanging out at Kurt Cobain's house. Apparently they had no heat and no food because they're just on heroin and nobody's getting groceries and dealing with like the heating oil situation or whatever this house has, or older house. So you have this heroin addict, so-called nanny, and his underage girlfriend just hanging out in one of the bedrooms on heroin while Kurt Cobain's wandering around the house in and out with a gun and doing whatever. Like, it's a very bizarre situation. Apparently Callie thought
weird.
Yes, he saw Kurt Cobain and thought he was hallucinating. So again, Courtney, she's frantically trying to locate Kurt. She's relapsed and gone back into rehab. His management team, everybody's freaking out and these two people are like, oh yeah, well, just hang out, cuddle in bed and do heroin all day and nod off because it's too cold and there's no food. Like, it's very, very bizarre, right? Things are quite dire. And again, some people have suggested that Callie's in on the murder. Like, no, this guy... And okay, and again, this morning, I can't resist going to deep dive sometimes. I'm going to show you, have you ever physically recoiled from a photograph? And again, this is potentially libelous and mean, but look at this. This is Callie. Yes, this is Callie DeWitt and his new wife. Physically recoiled from that photograph. So I couldn't resist digging into Virginia Rand. She graduated high school in 2011. So this creep, apparently he also is an artist who worked with Kanye West. So this man is a pervert. Like, anyway, I don't want to get into it. I don't want to get sued. This man's a pervert. He's living in the house. Kurt's wandering around. They're on heroin. And this isn't the same woman, you know. Obviously, his other boarding school girlfriend, I guess, got too old. So now I guess he married a woman. I guess she's in her 30s, so whatever. But anyway, this guy's a pervert. But no, he helped mastermind. He helped kill Kurt, right? Genius. Left no evidence, cleaned everything up. Because what they say, the police walked in on that scene and they're like, oh, this is suicide. It's just, this is what it is. But anyway, that's this creepy guy. So very bizarre situation. Let's get to what actually happened final days. So Kurt's wandering around Seattle. These weird people are in his house. Nobody's communicating very well. Callie had left a note. Oh, were you in the house? And I didn't see you. Probably because at this point, Tom Grant, an investigator Courtney Love hired, also a piece of shit. He's investigating him. And again, I'm going to talk about this guy too in a bit. So Courtney Love calls Tom Grant, private investigator. He goes to Seattle with Dylan Carlson, another interesting person we'll talk about, and they couldn't find Kurt anywhere. They didn't look in the greenhouse. Kurt was already dead by the time they got there. Right? But they had found a note that Callie had written. So there's some confusion about this. Tom Grant is one of the people who has started the conspiracy theory that Kurt was murdered.
Yeah, I know. He's kind of central in it. Yeah.
He's a piece of shit. And now here's where I will criticize Marcus Parks from last podcast on the left. Great researcher. Don't agree with everything he says. He's like, well, I think Tom Grant's on the up and up because he left the LAPD in good standing. I'm like, buddy, no. No.
You mean the police department that's famous for police gangs?
Yeah, no. This guy saw, oh, this guy's dead. I probably fucked up. She did it. And I hate this woman because she's annoying. And she bugs me for some reason because she reminds me of my bitch mom. Who knows what's going on with this guy? But this is what starts sort of the whole thing too. But the idea, like, it's very... I don't want to get into Tom Grant either, but this is where a lot of the conspiracies come from. People who want to be part of this story and want to make their name and make money from it. So again, last couple of days, nobody can find him. Yes, he shoots heroin and ends up shooting himself. Just horrible, sad, kind of ultimately meaningless. So, but what I would say now, getting a bit serious, myself with addiction issues, I ended up in rehab for self-harm, essentially. Tried to harm myself as well. Had been hospitalized a few times because of the alcohol and prescription medication. When you are on that sort of lot of drugs, and again, he's on $400 worth of heroin a day, right? You're not thinking straight. And when you're in this mess, you've made a mess of your own life. You're not in your right mind if you're, in your addiction and you're using. So sometimes the idea of ending everything it's like the best idea in the world, because you're like, oh, I've made a mess. How else do I get out of this? So again, he sees himself, I'm sure, painted into a corner, right? I also want to get into a bit more. So again, with myself, just to be clear, totally sober. Again, if you are struggling with addiction, suicidal ideation, just get help, right? It seems like a good idea at the time. And I'm sure to Kurt it did as well, but it's not, right? You just destroy your family. Again, a little bit serious here. Okay. So again, how did he kill himself? And this is another detail that article missed. It clearly states his guns were confiscated, but then he shot himself a couple weeks later. Well, what happened? Okay. So Courtney had these guns confiscated, which again, if you want your husband to die and he's suicidal, yeah, take his guns away. Again, this doesn't track with human behavior, Okay, but again, his friend Dylan Carlson, he's a musician. He also is the subject of the song In Bloom.
Oh, okay.
If you know that song, he likes all the pretty songs, and he likes to sing along, and he likes to shoot his gun, but he knows what it means.
Yes.
Very critical, you can see he's kind of a redneck guy. He means well. Well, he's the guy who buys Kurt Cobain his shotgun, buys him a brand new one. The day after Kurt's intervention, so again, I believe this is March 28th or so, end of March 1994, he has an intervention, his family and friends. He reacts very violently. Him and Courtney, they're fighting a lot. There's talk of divorce, which, yeah, of course, this is typical. The day after the intervention, he goes and he asks his friend to buy him a shotgun for him, which he does. So you wonder how that guy feels, Probably shitty. He's still alive. He still has a band. Again, I don't know who this person is, and I don't want to judge because he was a heroin addict as well. But goddamn, he said, I had no idea Kurt was suicidal. Well, you'd say that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He knows not what it means, right? So very tragic. And again, you don't see people blame him the way they would. Like, nobody knows who this guy is really in the general public. Everyone says, oh, Courtney Love killed Kurt. Well, nobody talks about this guy. People who are into the real conspiracy theory freak stuff, yeah, they'll say, oh, he was involved because obviously he bought him the gun. This is just related fact.
Right, and everybody is a malicious actor who's working according to a plan. And, of course, the more people you add to the plan, the more secret it is.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Like, these things are all out in the open. This is just clearly what happened. And again, to have orchestrated any of this while they're all on heroin is just, come on, people. All right. So again, backing up, into my own insights, why Kurt started using heroin, what ultimately led to this kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think, he's self-medicating with heroin, of course, but I don't think it was for stomach issues. Like, he's been using drugs for most of his adult life, all of his adult life. Like, I don't know if Kurt Cobain was sober from the day he turned 19 for a single day. You know what I mean? Like, he pretty much was using drugs all the time.
Yeah.
People said, oh, when he was with Tracy Miranda, Olympia days, he was focusing on the band, using drugs less. But when they break up and Nirvana hits it big, he's just into heroin, like, immediately. And again, he was into heroin well before he even became famous, right? So I'm kind of like, this is kind of funny. Again, I want to make it about myself, but I can offer insights to human behavior. Did you ever see that Tim Robinson sketch, I Used to Be a Piece of Shit?
I have.
I think you should leave. I was watching with my brother. I can't remember exactly what happened. I think my brother-in-law turned to me and was like, hey, you used to be a piece of shit. And I was like, yeah, I did. I think that's what happened.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. In the nicest possible way. So basically, this character is a man who loves to tell everybody what a piece of shit he used to be. I used to be a piece of shit. I'm not anymore though. He's telling a baby he used to be a piece of shit. Because he had the slick back hair. He looks at another man. He's like, oh, I can see you're a piece of shit. That hair would slick back real good. So anyway, I felt personally attacked by that sketch because I do, as a person who used to be a piece of shit. It is fun to tell people about how you're not a piece of shit anymore. How you used to be a real piece of shit. But yeah, so, I was a piece of shit in mainly, when you're an alcohol abuser, you just lie a lot. So I just lied all the time. Any excuse to drink or to relapse, I would take. Again, people will be critical of me and I go, wow, that's going to make me drink even more. Like, it's bad behavior. It's shameful. And I felt bad about myself, and it's very destructive, right? So with Kurt using heroin, that's even, I don't judge people for their drug use. Again, I don't know if drugs are bad necessarily. I think it depends on the drug. Personally, alcohol is a very harmful drug. marijuana is barely a drug, right? Like I feel like they're, the hallucinogenics have psychoactive and healing healing properties. They can be used to treat psychological issues too. So
Well,
drugs are not the problem.
Everything you can get high from has medicinal use. Like
Yeah,
everything.
exactly. Yeah.
It's just dosage, and
Yeah.
and the thing about drugs, good or bad, is more to the point that they're here and we have to deal with.
Yeah, well, exactly. Like personally, my personal opinion is like literally like legalize everything.
Mhm.
And make sure when you do that, though, you have a very robust public health system and strong education around drug use, and you regulate it and you make it like, I feel like I should be able to go to the store, like go to a dispensary and buy acid.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's that harmful. And again, you can dose it out correctly. You can give people advice. Like you can do, and again, this is, or like MDMA, things like this.
Well, and
heroin is way different.
Prohibition doesn't work is the big thing. And if it did work, we wouldn't have an opioid crisis and several friends of mine who have died from overdoses, right? So it doesn't work. And people get into this very flying my leftist flag liberal idea. And I mean, like, liberalism is a big tent, not just like liberal versus conservative.
Yes.
Well, you don't want to endorse it. And because somehow that's endorsing something is as bad as actually doing it. And you hear, well, are you endorsing this as something that happens in political arguments a lot? And it's a nonsense concept, right? It just doesn't mean anything. What does endorsing drugs mean? Like, okay, all right, everybody, become heroin addicts. I endorse this. Okay, that was a politically meaningless statement. It's changed nothing. So, anyways, I'll get off my high horse about that. That's a pun.
High horse.
Yeah.
Double pun.
High horse.
But drugs are here, and we need to look them in the face and recognize that drug use is, to varying extents, horrifying and awesome, all at the same time.
Exactly.
And just, it's just a part of human experience, so they're not going away. So let's just deal with it.
And a lot of them are fun. Like, honestly, look at the news. People love to get high. People love to get high. They've always loved to get high. We need to alter our states. And frankly, like, I'm on psychiatric medication. I'm not raw dog in the world. No way.
Yeah.
I don't know how anybody does. Our brains have not evolved to cope with our modern life. I believe that literally, like in terms of like things like anxiety, right? We are primed to be anxious and looking out for things that are going to harm us. If you're in a world where nothing realistically is going to harm you, your brain, my brain, looks for things.
Oh, mine does too.
Make up things that are going to harm me. And that's just sort of an function of evolution that we have nowhere to put it. You take the medication to get the edge off,
I cannot stress how many, like, we're just lying down, settling in to go to sleep, and Tracy will start just fixating on something. It's like, you just kind of needed something to be anxious about.
Yeah.
Yes. Again, my addiction roots in severe anxiety that wasn't being treated appropriately. Right? I wasn't being medicated for various reasons. And so alcohol really does a good job at first of cutting your anxiety. But ultimately this is why it depends on the drug, because alcohol, you wake up the next day and your brain's on fire with anxiety. At least I did. Like, it's pouring fuel onto it.
Oh, anxiety
it cuts
is
anxiety
a
for like
whole
an hour.
Yeah.
And the next day you have panic attacks.
No, like, there's a term people use, hangxiety, where you are more likely to be extremely anxious during a hangover. And I have a complex relationship to alcohol because of a very strong history of addiction in my family, and I love booze. So one suggestion Tracy had a while ago that I have more or less stuck to pretty religiously is I don't drink on weekdays unless there's like a special occasion or something like that. And I don't drink if I'm sad. I don't drink if I'm feeling unhappy. And because of that, I think I have a healthy relationship to it, but it means that I need all this self-discipline about this very ever-present drug, because alcohol is a drug. And alcoholism, like, genuinely killed my father. And it is something that is one of the hardest drugs to quit. It's like alcohol, cigarettes, and heroin are sort of the top three. of
Mhm.
when you are properly addicted. Those are the hardest to get. Those are the hardest to get clean from.
Yes. Oh, yep. That sounds about like it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Again, it's tough because again, it depends on the drug. Like, and then some drugs, like, risk of my professional life, but it's legal now. I'm Cali sober, and I honestly believe if marijuana had been legal for my adult life, I would not have turned to drinking because as recently as 10 years ago, to try and buy weed, even in Canada, sometimes I'm a loser. I don't have a hookup. I have to go to like the skeeziest places and like ask strangers. Like it's sketchy, right? It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So I would never, and half the time, and so now you go to the cannabis shop and it's fine. You get some edibles, great, no harm done. And I feel like it's honestly helpful to me in a way. Like the drug they can enhance and they can take away. Depends the drug you're using. Again, alcohol too. Again, I wouldn't prohibit it, and I think it's fun to drink. And I always, Karl Ove Knausgaard, again, he really amazing series of books about his life, but he writes about being a teenager in Norway, like I think 70s, 80s. And he's like, the first time he drinks, he's like, oh my God, this is amazing. Why isn't everybody drunk all the time? Which, yeah, because it is fun.
It's great.
Like,
Being drunk is
yeah.
fun. Being hungover is not. But
yes,
and even with cannabis, it's an incredible anxiety spike in some people,
yes.
and some folks just can't get intoxicated because they are mentally fixated on the state of being intoxicated and use no matter what. And
Yeah.
I've known a few people like that where they're not alcoholics, but if they take a sip of alcohol, they will drink everything in sight because they have to get as drunk as possible. Or I'm not going to take 5 milligrams of pot. 5 grams of pot. I'm going to take 100 because it's there. And it's a whole thing. So health is individual. Even though addiction is a social thing, it's a mix of the individual and the communal.
Because it's interesting. And with alcohol, I would say too, like I'm the same way in that, or I was the same way. I couldn't have one drink. Oh, that's not true. In my younger days, when I was from the Kootenays, I smoked pot before I ever drank. And I didn't actually drink at all until my 30s.
Oh, wow.
I would have a drink here and there, and I was able to control. I have, after work, Canadian Tire, after work, we go to the bar and I have like a Malibu and pineapple. You know what I'm saying? I would have one or two and they'd be fine. Right. And then when, getting on with life, moving away, different places, various circumstances, I became an alcoholic pretty gradually. I'd say after about 7 years. It took, and then the last, again, sort of terminal spiral, I called it, very dangerous kind of last 6 months, was when, again, it was the alcohol itself was bad enough, but then combining it with the benzos, where I did not know that you literally will die.
Yes.
Like, it just shuts down. It shuts down your respiration.
Yeah,
yes,
your
it just stops
respiration.
everything.
Yeah,
no idea. And so, very, very luckily, I had an incident where I was hospitalized, and I decided, like, I can't do this anymore. My parents had brought up the idea of rehab. I was very scared. I was very terrified. But again, other people. I had a cousin who went to a particular facility. I went for a month, and I treated it like school, basically. Like, I was like, okay, I'm here. I got to fix this problem. I can't do this anymore, because it does become do or die, like quite literally.
Oh, yeah.
So with Kurt Cobain, he was on this track. Like, this was going to happen if he did not stop. Right?
No, and the circling back to Kurt. I'm sorry. You're going to finish your story. The fact that he was sent to rehab at that point and not 3-4 years previous is, and again, rehab doesn't always work for people, but like, holy shit.
Yeah. No, I was very lucky that, and again, like you, Dave, I stuck to the weekends drinking, but then that was creeping into every day. And then the pills and stuff too. But yeah, so it can be a tricky time, and everyone reaches sort of their own rock bottom. Very interestingly, so a friend of mine who passed away from addiction had said to somebody else at rehab, this woman who had a drinking problem, she said, I don't know if I've hit rock bottom yet. And this friend of mine said, well, how deep do you want to keep digging?
Oh,
right? Well, that's a good point too. Everyone's rock bottom is different.
Yeah.
The rock bottom is only visible in retrospect, right? Everybody can get worse. Yes. It's just like, that's your rock bottom. It's not a universal constant of, well, I guess I wasn't like sleeping in a ditch missing a leg or something like that. I just like had a hospital visit. It's like, and it's not a competition.
Exactly. Well, exactly. And it's not, and it shouldn't be, because that becomes a problem. I was an alcoholic. I was reading a lot of alcoholic memoirs. I was sort of in denial, but I kept reading like Mary Carr, and I was like, oh, well, the problem with those too is you read them and you say, well, I'm not that bad yet.
Yeah.
Right. And I've told people my stories and they've said, well, I'm not as bad as Jen yet. And I'm like, no, this isn't the point I want to get across. The point is, it doesn't matter how bad it gets. You have to stop. So I was a treatment. I treated it like school. And also, for me, at least, I'm a professional job, very supportive family. Mm-hmm. My immediate circle of friends and family were not drinkers either. Right? This was not a social drinking situation I had where everyone's pushing me. It was me by myself, self-medicating. Yeah. So, yes, it made me realize, I'm in rehab with a lot of interacting with lots and lots of people with very serious addiction issues, very limited support in their life, very hard lives. And I'm like, you know what? I don't have any real problems. I got to get over myself. These are issues that I have some issues, yes, but they're manageable. And throwing alcohol at them is just making it worse, right? Mm-hmm. So I knew I had to quit. But the problem with addicts and people, again, like Kurt Cobain, you can't tell people to quit. Like as an addict recovering myself, there's nothing you can say to anybody to make them stop. Like, and this is an issue. This is something people have to realize as well. You can try, you can intervene, you can let people know how you feel, you can help them, or you can tell them you love them and that they need help, but you can't say anything to anyone. Like I wouldn't even know what to say to anybody. They have to have their own motivations to want to quit. So with Cobain, he did not want to quit, right? Yeah. So he died of of his heroin addiction, and crucially, having a gun available, huge, but also just the cognitive dissonance, of his life. So I'm getting towards the end here. I just want to maybe wrap up a little bit with some sort of final thoughts about what I think kind of happened. So again, this is straying a bit from the psychogeographical, but I think it's interesting anyway. So why did he become a heroin user in the first place? Well, some people want to be a tortured artist, maybe. And again, I love Kurt Cobain. I didn't know him, but I love his sort of music and what he gave to us. Flawed human like everybody else, right? Heroin is very romanticized. He's growing up listening to music in the 70s. Heroin was big then, right? So, and he also probably wanted to, escape. Heroin use is very rampant in the music scene in the Pacific Northwest in the 80s and 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it was already there. It's in the system. He's kind of already like a rebellious teenager doing all the drugs, right? He can get his hands on anyway. Some people, he was a huge admirer of like William S. Burroughs. William S. Burroughs famously was a drug addict, heroin addict for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, people can use drugs for a long time and then have an artistic experience or awakening or whatever, and then they move beyond it and they grow old. Or you get like Lane Staley, from Alice in Chains, just sinks deeper and deeper into it. That's kind of where things might have been going. Okay, so by the... Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go on, Jen. Sorry, and I have my speculation on what, because a quote I like is, "Everyone is that way for a reason," and it is something I always remind myself of if I'm dealing with somebody who is just making me miserable or being difficult or antisocial or whatever, where I don't always necessarily have to tolerate bad behavior or put up with it in my life, but I can always in the back of my mind recognize everyone comes to where they are from some kind of place. And when you look at this combination of a depressed place like Aberdeen, and you have what is likely the malaise and intense boredom of being a teenager from this, again, broken home, and heroin is everywhere. And if I'm right, he was bipolar as well, right?
That I don't know.
Okay. My understanding is he was bipolar. I don't know how intensely bipolar he was, but it's very likely that, and again, there's a reason why not everybody from his background ends up as Kurt did. But if you have an underlying psychological issue that self-medicating works for, and you lack the social supports and infrastructure to support that, and then you add in everyone's doing heroin. Heroin is cool because I associate it with Lou Reed and William Burroughs and other figures like that.
Yep.
All of these different factors come together to make it this sort of obvious and sort of inevitable outcome of this. And because, how would you kind of not end up as a heroin addict if you were Kurt Cobain?
That's a good question. Honestly, it is. People, that's actually a very good point. Yeah, I've never thought about that because, yes, kind of inevitable, and given who he was and how his childhood went, and just, who he admired. Yeah, excellent point.
I just think about like the bored teenagers in like the depressed little city kind of deal, which is such a huge deal in how like punk music came out of the UK. Was this like alienation and boredom and misery with this world when you're in this depressed time. So all of that soup that he comes from is going to taste like heroin.
Sure is.
That's quite the metaphor.
Which
I like my metaphors mixed, like as mixed as much as I like my soup mixed. That didn't work. That's right. Carry on, Jen.
You okay? You know what? It was mixed. Even mixed reviews on that. That's okay. But no, it's true. It does feel a little bit inevitable. I mean, I think people ultimately, again, I'm not sure the extent to which I believe in free will, in the sense that we're all a combination of nature, nurture, ways we can't even comprehend, right? But
I believe we have free will in a limited context.
Yes. Yeah.
And we are helpless about our context, but we can make choices within that context, because an individual decision that could go one way or another has changed history on multiple occasions. And I don't think those decisions were inevitable. However, the point that you came to that decision was a result of that context. But yeah, anyways, it would be exceptional for Kurt not to be a heroin addict, considering all of the factors at play, or an alcoholic, or just falling into addiction generally.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Pretty normal, actually. Mm-hmm. So again, he's very famous, having trouble dealing with all this. So Rome, what happened in Rome was they quit their tour in Europe. They ended their tour in Europe in March. The last day, Kurt and Courtney go to a hotel in Rome. He overdoses. We heard about this a bit. Was a suicide attempt, pretty obviously, again. So by this time, though, there are a couple of other factors that I think really might have been a tipping point. Okay, so the time of his suicide attempt in Rome in 94, he had come to hate touring. One of the reasons he hates touring is because it's really hard to get heroin overseas. Like legit.
No. I completely believe that. Of course it is. Yeah. You're not gonna know who your hookup is in Prague.
No. So although speaking of Prague, it's really funny. I shouldn't tell you this, but like this is a long time ago, statute of limitations if there are any. Early 2000s and mid 2000s in Europe, I was traveling. I literally Googled where to buy weed in Prague, and it worked.
Oh,
they gave you instructions. Go to this bar, walk down this hallway, etc., and I did it. It was stupid, but it worked.
The internet is amazing.
Czech Republic.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't do that again. I was stupider in my less responsible days, let's just say, as you can tell by some of my life choices. Okay, anyway, so yeah, he's not doing good. He's having a suicide attempt. They're trying to intervene, but here's what's going on in the background too. So people in charge of Cobain's affairs, so he has managers. His wife, of course, is taking on a lot of his business responsibilities, even though she has her own band to deal with, right? He has record label handlers, managers, all this stuff. They want him to quit using too, right? And I think Danny Goldberg, one of his managers, wrote a memoir about Kurt. It was very nice. He's like, we all loved him. We all wanted him to stop using. But it seemed like they wanted him to stop using because Nirvana was supposed to headline Lollapalooza 94. This is what I think is what might have been one of the tipping points, right? Lollapalooza is a massive tour, especially in the 90s. If you're not, old enough to remember, like I was, I always wanted to go to Lollapalooza, but I was too young and it didn't work out. I had a cousin who saw Green Day at Lollapalooza in 94. And I was like, God damn, like I missed out. I was a little bit too young for some of this stuff, but they want Nirvana to play Lollapalooza in 94. They're going to make millions and millions of dollars. So this is March and he's overdosing. So, okay, they're not tying into what I said before about asking people to quit drugs, telling people to quit drugs. They have to want to quit. You don't get an anti-corporate rock star to quit drugs by saying, hey, get clean real quick so you can go on tour and make us a bunch of money. And this is what they were doing. This is what they were essentially asking. He overdoses. He's suicidal. He's overdosing on heroin all the time. He goes into rehab. When does Lollapalooza start? May, June?
Yeah.
You're not going to kick your $400 a day habit in 2 months to be well enough to go on tour. Like this is what they're asking. And this is what I think. Yeah.
And somebody in Kurt's position who is smart and cynical and hates this corporate bullshit is going to see them using him and be even more defiant about not quitting.
Exactly. Yes. even myself, like, okay, when I was drinking, I'm gonna pull the old Elon Musk. I never hurt anyone physically. I didn't, but I was hurting my family because I was hurting myself and I was putting them through a lot of shit. At a certain point, like if they had tried to do an intervention on me, I would have been like, fuck you, I'm gonna drink more. Because that's what you do when you're an addict also, right?
Yeah.
Not making good decisions. So, okay, so Courtney also is encouraging him to get clean. You know, she does love him. Nobody wants him to die. Like, he is a child, right? This is, again, human. Look at the human behavior here, right? Yeah. So they're not saying get clean so you can get like, what they should have said was, okay, quit music, you know?
Yeah.
Take a break, quit. Let's just do whatever you need to do. You can hang out in a farmhouse for a while, be with your family, get help. Like, he's wealthy at this point. You hire nurses, get through it, and then see what happens.
Yeah, vanish from society for 3 years so that your fame dies down.
Yes.
And then come back. When this is done, I'll do my little speech about, I'd say, the most helpful discussions I've had with addicts and where being a friend can be useful without just telling them to quit, because that's not helpful. Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, in this case, yeah, they're basically like, get clean to go on the Lollapalooza tour because you're going to make a shit ton of money for everybody. Right? So what he's seeing, he saw anger at his he's seeing now Courtney is quite controlling. He says nasty things about her, nasty things about his management team during the intervention. People said he was very mean. It wasn't like him because he's an addict and he sees them as controlling, right? So the only people who don't push him away or don't control him are his fellow heroin addict friends, right? This is where we get back to Dylan Carlson. Buying a gun. Like, this man bought drugs and guns for Kurt Cobain, his rock star friend. Like, very not really with it, but he's giving him whatever he wants, right? So there's this too. Okay, so the money is not a good motivation for Kurt Cobain to quit, right? And we have cognitive dissonance too, right? So he's absorbing this anti-corporate ethic, totally at odds with his actual commercial success. Again, and he worked really hard. Like, you don't start a band and do demo tapes and go on tours nonstop because you don't want to be famous or you don't want any success, except he became the biggest rock star in the world, which is probably not really what he really wanted. So you can't really reconcile this, right? So he's in this position where, again, descending into depression, addiction, feeling trapped. Him and Courtney aren't getting along, probably heading towards a divorce. Or at the very least, they needed to take a break from each other and like get cleaned up, both of them, right? Get some treatment and stuff. But you have to think, you want to be a rock star, and then you get there, and then what? What's the point, right? He wanted this so badly, he worked so hard, and now he's in his mansion, basically alone and miserable. So what else do you do, right?
Yeah.
So again, he didn't really let anybody know where he was after he escaped from rehab, ends his life. And again, you can't help but see that as symbolic, like in his mansion, this is supposed to be like a sanctuary, but nope, that's just, the kid from the little yellow house in Aberdeen ends up in the mansion in Seattle, and that's where it all ends because, well, again, what did we learn? So what did I learn? So just real quick, I'll just wrap my part up. So I visited Kurt Cobain's house. Again, the mansion, you can go there. There's a nice park. It has a bench with all these like nice letters and flowers and stuff. I've been there a couple times. It's interesting both times. Worth it to see. Again, I don't think I learned anything from visiting there necessarily. Again, I feel going to these different places really helped me understand his music, appreciate it more, appreciate him as a musician and as a human being. But I feel like my takeaway is that he was just a vulnerable human being who may have died because he couldn't reconcile his wealth and fame with his ethics and morals, and because he couldn't take a break for his mental health, and because he owned a gun. Right? There's a lot of factors at play. Really quick shout out, Sarah Marshall does an episode on the Kurt Cobain copycat suicide myth. Because in fact, there were not
the
a lot
moral
of
panic.
suicides.
The moral panic about that. Again, I was 14 when he killed himself. 13 actually, but about to turn 14, and I was a really gormless kid, and at that age, I knew nothing about music. I started getting into music when I was like 15, 16, but the shockwave that went through my little rural Albertan high school, and the intense fear of copycat suicides, where all of the kids were like washed like a hawk, and we had assemblies, and this entire idea that there would be this like wave of teenagers killing themselves all over the country, like pure moral panic. It was quite a thing to live through at that age, particularly.
Yeah. Oh, yes, I vaguely remember that because when I was 12 when he passed away. But yeah, it was a huge moral panic. And the fact is that article I quoted earlier about the copycats, there weren't that many because they actually did a very good job. They said the news media in particular and the way people in Seattle reacted to it. And again, there's video. You can hear Courtney Love reading his suicide note. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
You listen to her read that note and yeah, she killed him. Like, come the fuck on. Honestly, there's video of her in the park next to their house in the days after he died, like talking to fans, and she looks devastated because she was, right? So these are human beings. This really happened to him. Horrible. Didn't have a chance to kind of take care of himself. And again, ultimately never answer why this happened. But again, a lot of factors at play. Really, again, as mentioned before, Sarah Marshall does an episode, I think, on the Cobain copycat suicides, debunking that. But she also does say that it was mainly the gun ownership, and people like to blame Courtney Love because they think you can just save somebody, right? And you kind of can't, right? So ultimately, he was in a tough position. If it had been handled better, he probably
a lot of things would have had to happen a lot earlier. And I mean, a lot earlier is key.
Yeah, that's right. So we can now appreciate the music that he left behind and remember his life and appreciate that for what it is. But yeah, addiction. It's a tough one. Take care of yourselves. And yeah, Dave, I'm curious about what, because I have found I have a hard time with advice.
Well, and the thing is that when you are friends with somebody who is an addict, which I have been many times throughout my life, and I've kind of taken my lumps and learned
Thanks for being a friend.
Hooray! And like, if you are in the situation of someone who is supporting someone who is an addict, the big thing to do is, although you can, of course, make your beliefs known, which is, you're an addict and I want you to get clean and I want to help you get clean, is to recognize that hectoring somebody doesn't work, and they'll just isolate themselves from, because you make things uncomfortable and they're trying to get away from the discomfort into their addiction. But what you can do is listen, validate, and also get them to talk about their addiction and get them to freely discuss it with you. Because if they are open and honest with you about something they tend to hide or not confront, and you are non-judgmental and validating, which is, I see the kind of shit you're dealing with and why you're coping in this way. I understand. It's not healthy, but I understand. When people start discussing this in a safe manner, they're confronting their addiction. And by confronting it, it gets them in the headspace where getting clean becomes more appealing. And they can then make that decision for themselves. And being somebody who is safe to talk to about these difficult things without jumping down their throat and being difficult about it can be an ingredient that helps. Because you also, as a friend, your job is not to save people. And if you want to be a friend to somebody, be a friend. Your job is to be their friend, not to be something else, or to be a friend in the hopes that the sober one of them is the person you'll get to get from that. No, this is the person in front of you, and love them for who they are. But being validating and allowing them to be honest with you safely is huge. And I think that at least a couple people have told me that's helped. So something to keep in mind if you're in the position of being a loved one or supporter to somebody who's hopefully wanting to or will want to get clean.
Yeah, that's great advice, Dave. Because before, when I said I don't know what to say, I wouldn't know what to say. That's true, but that doesn't mean say nothing.
Yeah,
like you absolutely should. And I think my family, with myself too, they did the best they could. They were kind of like you say, Dave. They're very supportive. They wanted me to quit. They made that clear. They made it very clear. I would try to quit several times. They made it clear how relieved they were. One thing they didn't do, they didn't tell me quite how stressed out they were. And they didn't reveal to me sort of the actual fear they had for me, which I was oblivious to and kind of didn't care about myself anyway. So it wouldn't have made, I don't know if it would have made a difference. I just wish, because later on they told me some things that I was like, oh, if I knew that, I'm so sorry, right? I didn't know what I was doing to them.
Oh yeah,
emotionally.
You don't want, again, don't hector people, but guilt does work. Guilt works.
But it does, honestly. Yeah, and again, for me, confrontation never worked. People, frankly, cutting me off didn't work, right? So, again, I don't judge people for doing that.
I think Tracy and I have a solid relationship built on a foundation of guilt.
Yeah.
Hey, good. Hey, if it's
I love the way you said that. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not mocking you, Tracy. It was just a tone.
Oh, I am.
Okay. Thanks, Dave.
Anytime, sweetie.
So that was, Kurt Cobain. I appreciate taking the time to let me talk for 2 episodes about this. I'm hoping, it was also very overwhelming to write because I have so many sources. The next one will be much more straightforward. Looking forward to, this is great to talk about. I can talk about Kurt Cobain all day, but I'm glad to kind of move on now. And
it is a wonderfully freeing sense when you finally get to record one of these and you're free of the curse of having to obsess and research that last item, and you can move on to a next one, because I need to be free from mine now as I'm doing the next episode, but it will come soon and it will be a delight.
It always is. Looking forward to it. And with that is the Wonderkamer part 2 of the Kurt Cobain Tragical History Tour. We'll be with you again in 2 weeks. And bye, Dave, and bye, Tracy.
Bye, Jen.
Bye, Jen.
Bye.
Not to the listeners, though. You don't get a goodbye.
Yeah, the hell with yous.
Okay, we're done.
Thank you for listening to The Wonderkamer. Find us under The Wonderkamer on Blue Sky, YouTube, and Instagram.